Let's take a few sheets of pattern paper and make 12 beautiful holiday cards. I picked up Recollections holiday shimmer paper and a pack of printed holiday cardstock. By creatively cutting and layering, I was able to use a few sheets of paper to create these 12 beautiful holiday cards. I'm also going to show you how you can use your scraps so you don't have any waste. Join me for my creative day as I show you how to make these cards. Now let's get crafting. Let's start out with the supplies you'll need. You're going to need 6 sheets of 8.5 by 11 cardstock for your card base. I picked white because it'll go better with the pattern paper that I chose, but pick any color that works for your card. When looking for pattern paper to use, whether in a pad or individual sheets, make sure you have one page with a large pattern and the other that can work as a background. These sheets that I have are both 12 by 12 sheets and will be enough for our 12 cards. In addition, I'm going to grab 2 sheets of shimmer paper, and that helps to bring out some of the colors on the pattern paper as our base layer. If you don't have shimmer paper, you can pick metallic or glitter paper or any solid color paper. Now, if you have scraps from other projects, grab a scrap of black cardstock and a scrap of the cardstock that matches your card base. For me, it was white. But if you don't have scraps, that's fine. Just grab an extra sheet or 2 of cardstock in black and the color of your card base. If you have a holiday stamp or stickers for a greeting that you want to use, grab them and then some ink to go with it. Now, if you don't have a stamp or stickers, don't worry, because I'm going to show you how you can create your own greetings with this card. And then I grabbed a pack of Recollection bling stickers to add a little sparkle to the front of the card. Because we're doing 12 identical cards, I want to prepare all the material first and then assemble. I find this way you can get more done in a shorter amount of time. For each cut, you will need 12 pieces. And the first thing I want to do is to cut all the paper. So let's start by cutting the card bases. With the shimmer paper, I'm going to cut each sheet into strips and then cut them down to size. I will get 6 pieces from each sheet. Remember to take the scraps and then you're going to cut them into the smaller pieces needed of this material. Even the little scraps that you have left over, you're going to want to save for later. With the pattern paper, again, you're going to cut each sheet into 3 strips and then cut them down to size. You will get 6 pieces from each sheet, and we will be cutting them again to get our 12 pieces for our cards. Cut the white paper into strips, and it's easier if you have a big piece of paper to work with. But if you do have small scraps, like with the black, you can always use a piece of removable tape to hold it down while cutting. We have one more cut to do with the pattern paper. You will need to cut each piece in half diagonally. You can do this by lining up the points on your paper cutter, or you can draw a line on the back and then cut along that line. Whichever way you choose to do all the pieces in the same orientation, and I'll show you later what happens when you don't do that. To get the card bases ready, I'm going to fold them in half. To fold them in half, just line up the 2 sides and use a bone folder or some kind of stiff, flat object to crease them. I find that if you press down towards the fold after lining up the top edges, you get a nice sharp crease. Okay, now that we have everything cut, it's time to stamp our greetings. I am going to stamp all my front and inside greetings now, so I only have to take out the ink pad once. I have a MISTI stamp positioner that I found to be a real time saver if you're doing a lot of repetitive stamping. I just lined up the stamp where I wanted it, and I stamp all the front greetings at once. I always do 2 layers of ink to make sure I have a nice, rich, dark color. And I don't press down really hard when I stamp because I want to keep the lines thin and crisp. Now, if you don't have a stamp positioner, you can do stamping by hand. Just line up the stamp in the middle of the paper. If you don't have a stamp, you can actually just print out your greetings on cardstock and then cut them to size. For the inside message, I'm folding the card open and placing it in the corner of my MISTI stamp positioner. I already have positioned my stamp to go right in the middle of the card. And again, I'm inking twice and not pressing too hard in one spot to get nice, rich, clean imprints. Remember, if you don't have a stamp, keep watching till the end and I'll show you how you can create your own message inside. Now everything is cut and stacked up in neat piles. Everything is stamped that's going to be stamped, and I can start assembly. Starting with the shimmer paper, make sure that you tape both sides and the middle so it stays very secure. I'm going to line up across the top and the sides, looking for an even border, check the bottom, and then press down. I'll do this for all 12 cards. The pattern paper I chose was directional, meaning it has a top and a bottom. So I'm going to have some cards where the paper is going to be on the bottom left and some where it's going to be on the top right. For the green background paper, there's no top or bottom, so it'll just go where it's needed. Because I'm using two pieces on the front of the card, I want to make sure I get them lined up before I glue them or tape them down. There will be some space between the two halves in the middle of the card that should be about the same size as the border. Once I have them lined up, I will tape the pieces down. Now when taping down, I don't push the whole piece down until I have both pieces lined up and I know exactly where I want it to be. When I glue them, I have a little bit of wiggle room because I can always slide the glued pieces around to the exact spot I wanted. Just make sure that when you're taping or gluing to get the points or the tips down of the cards. You remember earlier when we were cutting the pattern paper and I said to make sure you cut them all in the same orientation? Well, when I showed you how to mark with a pencil and then cut the paper on an angle, I cut the pattern in a different orientation, and I have these two mismatched pieces. Rather than scrap them, I found a way to recut them so that they would work. Mistakes happen. It happens to all of us. But instead of throwing things away, just try to rework your mistakes and cut them into something different like I did here. The card base is done and I'm going to assemble the front greeting. For this, I'm just going to layer the printed greeting on top of the shimmer paper. Now, this is centered in the middle, but it does have larger borders on the side. So I'm going to use the grid pattern on my cutting board to make sure it looks pretty even before I tape it down. Now I'm just going to take that greeting and layer it on top of the black. This has a thin, even border all around. Our front greeting is done now and it's time to add it to the card. To give it a little bit of interest, I'm adding dimensional foam behind the sentiment, so that way it'll pop out of the front of the card. I'm going to line up the greeting with the edges of the pattern paper right in the middle of the card. To add a little bling to our card, I'm going to add a few bling stickers right next to the sentiment. Now, as you can see, when I was doing these, I was wrestling to get these little guys off the sticker sheet. After many trials, I tried sliding them while lifting them, and they came off a bit easier. But if you know another way to get these off easier, please let me know in the comments. Remember all the scraps we had from cutting the paper? Well, now it's time to use them inside the cards. For the larger gift box scraps, I'm going to cut them so that there's a gift in each piece. Then I'll add them to the scraps of black that I had. And remember those little pieces from the shimmer paper? They make a nice addition to our inside tag here. Another option is to take the long strips that we had left over from the pattern paper and cut them to the same length and make a border sandwich out of them. After adding all the scraps to the inside, there was hardly any paper left. And now, these give the inside of the card a little bit of interest and color. Now, if you don't have a stamp for your inside messages for your cards, you can print one from your computer. Open up a Word program, click on File and Page Setup, and you're going to set your top margin at 2 inches and your left margin at 4 1/4 inches. And press OK. And then you're going to want to paste in your text that you want for your greeting. You can always search the internet. Make sure that your page is set to 100% zoom. Highlight the entire text and change the font to what you want to use. I chose Good Vibes. And then I set my font size at 23. And make sure you hit enter after so this change takes effect. Set the alignment to center. Go to Format, Line and Paragraph Spacing. We're going to do a custom spacing because I want the lines to be a little bit closer. Mine was set at 0.7 and then click Apply. Now your greeting is nice and condensed. You want to copy and paste it right below the original. The first greeting is right where it needs to be, but you want to move the second one down the page. So you're going to hit enter until it's down around 5 to 5 1/4 inches on the page. You can use the ruler on the left-hand bar to line it up. Zoom out again to 50% to see the full page. And you can see that the greetings are now centered at the top and the middle of the page. All you have to do now is print it on cardstock and then cut your cardstock in half. Well, my 12 cards are all done using just a few sheets of pattern paper. I made a few variations using different holiday papers to get even more cards. This is an easy pattern to use, just following the same basic cutting guidelines. You can use it for a birthday card or any occasion card. Now my cards are all done and ready to be sent out. So how about trying this for your holiday cards this year? I hope you liked the ideas and tips I gave you. And if you did, I would appreciate if you would click the like button below. And if you want to see more videos, hit the subscribe button, and I'll keep sharing my creative days with you. And that's all till our next creative day.